Welcome back. All right, we got One Piece 1167 on the docket today. I think we should just jump right into it. How about y'all? What y'all think? I think we're just gonna jump right in and discuss what I thought was interesting. I had the chapter pulled up and then I closed it, but I do have my notes pulled up already. So, um, our cover page is still reader request, fan requests, so that's good. Chapter started off like it's Morgan's kind of gathering his propaganda to spread for the world government. Nothing like surprising. Um, it is interesting. Like Oda's showing 5 years after God Valley. I don't really. I'd have to pull up a timeline and see. I don't really think there's anything 33 years ago, but this this first like notification of time is 5 years after. So there's that. Um and then I saw like in the leaks that like everybody was talking about the Florian Triangle Florian Triangle monsters. Wow. I got that out like right the first time without getting tongue tied, and then it didn't sound right because I didn't tongue tie myself. Um People were talking about it and I thought like the leakers were kind of hinting at, oh, like the revelation, like we're gonna see what they finally were, and it was just kind of like, no, people thought Harold was one, and I don't know, I just didn't like that leak because like Harold was known as one over 14 years ago because he's been dead for 14 years, so I just didn't like that. I didn't think that was, I don't know, the discourse around that was kind of stupid to me. But we just get a lot. We get a lot of narrator talk for the first 5 or 6 pages. Just kind of talking about like the aftermath of God Valley, like what all came from that. You know, the Yonko, eventually Roger becoming king of the pirates. But then we finally get kind of back to Harold, and you know, he's in Marijoa finally, like formal access. He's not sneaking in like he did at the Reverie when he first met Rocks. And he gets like a covenant, I guess. Um, like you know, the tattoo we saw on Shanks's arm at the start of this flashback. Harl gets one, and we get information on what that actually is, which is the first big point I have in my notes here. So, I don't remember what chapter it was exactly, but a few chapters back, like when God Valley was going on, before all the fighting and stuff happened, um, just like when we were getting the part about the hunting contest, um, the translations were coming out calling Gunko a devoted blade. And at the time, I was reading a lot online about like just inconsistency. Like, are they devoted blades? Like, like is this kind of what the Gorosei, Emu, other celestial dragons call the God's Knights? Like, what exactly is up with this devoted blade, or you know, God's steel thing? Because the celestial dragons were saying, oh, she's just this, and it was like a little demeaning that you wouldn't like expect from how they would talk about a God's Knight, right? Like it wasn't how they talked about Garling, who at the time of the God Valley flashback is the captain of the God's Knights, I believe. Ooh, actually, I don't know if he is. Let me not say that, because he's the captain or commander in this chapter, but I don't know if he was back then. Let me not say that. But they spoke highly of him. Everybody knew Garling was gonna win. He was like that dude, right? So I do think like finally getting some clarity on that is good. Um, and basically, what it is the devoted blade or the God steel are kind of like, I would say they're like apprentice God's Knights, right? Like, I guess technically, like they wouldn't be called a God's Knights, right? Like the God's Knights wouldn't consider them one, but I'm pretty sure the lower world of the One Piece, people would be like, oh, they're a God's Knight anyways, unless they take like being one of the 13 very literal and serious. Um, but I kind of equate it to like being an apprentice pirate. Um, like the people in the One Piece world, they're not gonna see like apprentice Shanks and go, "Oh, he's not a pirate." And that's how I view it. I did think it's a little different. Obviously, like it's very specific. There are 13 chosen. I would assume the 13 chosen that is mentioned is like God's Knights only. Oh, I don't think the Gorosei are included in that. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think that's the case. Um, so we basically get an explanation on why it's called the Devoted Blade, and then we also get some information on that tattoo and the other forms of it, basically. So, I can't really tell which Gorosei this is coming from. It looks like Top Man, but it's either Top Man or Saturn. But they're basically just explaining that. Sorry, I'm not trying to smack my lips in the mic. They're basically just explaining like there are 3 levels to the Abyss contract that we've kind of like known about, but it's like it expands on it further, right? It says there's the Shallows Covenant, and before I forget and slip into my own headcanon or whatever, they are officially called covenants in the Viz official. I've seen contract, I've seen pact, but they're called covenants. So there's the Shallows Covenant, which is signified by the tattoo that Shanks had at the start of this whole flashback, and then what we see on Harold's arm here in this chapter, along with having the Shallows Covenant, you are basically, is what I was mentioning earlier. Like you're basically like an apprentice God's Knight kind of thing, or as it's officially called, a devoted blade. I've seen God's Steel. I think devoted blade is better because God's Steel kind of implies that the implication there to me would be like you're more direct to Emu. I don't know. I think I don't know. We'll see like how relevant it is to use Devoted Blade versus God Steel, but I think Devoted Blade fits better. Um and then they're just kind of telling Harold like, you keep it up, we'll make you a God's Knight. That's pretty much what it says. Like they're telling him keep being a good boy. So that's kind of sad for Harold. Like there's the what is it called? The sunken cost thing. Like he's put so much effort into this already. There's like he could turn back, but you don't turn back. Like I feel like that's kind of how he feels. Like with especially after Rox died, which I don't know if I did exactly the best job of talking on that in the last video, but I really do think just after Rox died, he has like sunken into it so much that it has made him more naive than he was before. So there's that. And this next panel I want to talk about briefly because it's like my whole translation gig. Um, and I wrote it down because I don't have the official or the unofficial pulled up. I have the official pulled up, but um, basically, what the difference is, right? In the unofficial, Saturn tells Harald that the entire world would be clamoring to welcome you. Now, this is kind of a big deal in terms of like how it's translated for, I would say, two reasons. One, context, right? Context always matters. But I guess this could be one reason, but to further the context, it goes back to, I think it was 1162. Um, what exactly do we mean by the world, right? That whole thing where Rox was saying he was after the world. That might have been 61, honestly. I'm not sure. But just the whole thing where um Rox was talking about the world, Blackbeard talks about the world, or more his crew said that to Saturn at Egghead. Um, you know, and it's theorized that in those scenes when they are saying the world, they're talking about Emu, like when Whitebeard asked Rox what they were looking at. Um, that's what I'm referring to. I couldn't think of this scene and how to describe it, but just at the end of whatever chapter that was, where that face off is finally kind of starting to happen, and Rox is like, if I had to call it something, I'd say the world. And to tie it back into this, um, in the unofficial, the entire world would be clamoring to welcome you. It makes you think that that's like Emu would be like, oh yeah, come on aboard. We need you, right? Versus the official says it will be announced to the world and you'll be welcomed, right? That's two very different, like, what I get from the official is more like, hey, we're gonna keep you, you'll be around, but you're like a side chick, That's kind of how I view this. Like, you're like a side chick, and by the time we get to that point, you'll be wifey status, and we'll post you on social media, and everybody's gonna love you. That's what I got from the official versus like the unofficial that I read. I'm not saying it's trying to say emu, but I just think the way that that's translated, it leaves it up to interpretation too much, and you have a valid, like, that's a valid theory slash argument. Like, okay, are they talking about emu or not? So I wanted to bring that up. So I thought that was really interesting. Like I said, I don't ever see the raws of One Piece, partly because I'm not on a social media that One Piece leaks on, so I don't know. Um, I can't really say for sure or give my 2 cents from what I do know, but it's kind of funny that I spoke on that right there, because the next thing I wanted to talk about is right below this, and it's the Knights Temple. They have it translated Shangara or Shangara, I would probably think is how it's said. But I think I've been saying it's a play on Shangri-La because I think it's possible with katakana to get closer to Shangri-La than this, or I would say, like, unless it's a copyright thing, because I think Shangri-La is in a book or something. So unless it's a copyright thing, I'm pretty sure you're able to like spell it in katakana to the point where when you translate it to English, it would be Shangri-La. So I'm not really sure on that one. All right, I had to do like a stop and start recording thing, but I'm pretty sure the last thing I talked about was the Shangri-La, the Shangri-La thing. Yes, yes. I say I'm pretty sure. I just listened to it, so I'm like, I don't know why I said pretty sure, but yeah. I just wanted to kind of touch on that because I thought that was like a cool, like it makes sense when you think about what Shangri-La is. It makes sense. Um, but we see Garling aged up here. We see a young Shamrock, looks about 15. I think it actually says how long ago this scene was. Maybe not. Oh, I guess it does. Let me go back. If we go back, it says this scene was. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Does it really? Okay, maybe I'm reading over it. I'm like trying not to read the entire chapter again. But I mean, if I had to say, this was probably the year Roger died. And I would assume this is Shamrock at that same time. Which Roger died 24 years ago. So, in the One Piece story, when you count for the time skip and all that. And we see an older Garling, a younger Shamrock, and Summers, who, based off his appearance now, Summers is probably what, in his 40s in this, maybe his late 30s. But Summers is just like, is the king of the giants really going to like obey us, kind of thing? And Garling's just trying to figure out what Emu's thinking, which it's kind of understandable, bro. Like the giant, like Harald is equal. I view Harald as equal to Rocks. And I think Rocks at his peak was probably stronger than Garp and Whitebeard. Not Garp, Roger. I mean, I guess Garp too. Roger and Whitebeard at their peaks. This is my opinion. I'd have to really look at like scaling that because I really genuinely don't know. But safe to say Harald is like able to clash with Rocks on equal terms when Rocks killed an admiral. So it kind of gives us a baseline, right? And that's a valid question, like that they're asking, like what is going on? We're bringing somebody this strong in, and like he's just gonna obey. That's kind of weird, but you know, Garling is just like, bro, you're good to do what you want, just don't talk about what we got going on, or we gonna have big issues. And this is something I wanted to talk about. I'll probably realistically, I might end up spending the most time on this. So we get Fishman Island, which Neptune just seems to know everybody, right? W him. Man. I really thought Ida was going to be Mosa. And I would bet a lot of money that she is not, and that it is Shirahoshi. I'd say like there's like a 98% chance that Mosa is Shirahoshi. And the reasoning for this is the official has been very consistent with its translation of Mosa and Mosa Mosa. So when those chapters were coming out with Loki talking about, or talking to Mosa, I should say, I believe when those got translated officially, it was Shaggy. Now, I think people who aren't really like looking at the deeper meaning, obviously people are trying to look and see like, okay, what does this mean? But I think Shaggy is Mosa Mosa, not just one Mosa. I guess it can be like you can use one Mosa to get there because you know the official did it. But typically, from my understanding, like the way I understood that was just that's whoever is the official translator trying to connect and like not have it as Mosa, right? But then we get Harold here basically saying to the future of my little brat, which is Loki, and your Mosa Mosa, which the official ended up translating as your shaggy daughter. But your Mosa Mosa versus Loki talking to Mosa. I mean, come on, bro. If it's not Shirahoshi, I'd be really surprised. Like, I'd be very surprised. But with it being Shirahoshi, it brings in the question: what is happening on Fishman Island? Because remember, the last time we heard from Mosa, like when her and Loki were talking, she was saying, or they, I guess I should say they, because we don't officially know, but I'm gonna say she, because I think it's Shirahoshi. She was basically saying like, there's something going on here. I probably can't contact you anymore, and that was it. So what's happening at Fishman Island exactly? I'm not sure. Maybe it's like repercussions of what's happening in Marijoa, because it's like right up directly above Fishman Island. That's kind of my guess, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, but I really like, bro. I was telling, I'm in a Discord, and I was telling some people, some Discord friends, that like when that leak came out, like people were going like Mosa Mosa, like what is that, right? Because of the way it was like because of how the text leaks were worded, and I was like Mosa, like that's who Loki was talking to, but I'm like it's too early for that. And lo and behold, when more context comes out, and I'm like, and I know a little Japanese, so I'm like okay, um, like I kind of did like my own translation, and I'm like okay, I'm starting to think this is Shirahoshi, and then it's revealed that this is like a conversation with Neptune. I'm like okay, it's starting to connect here because it's the running joke of when they found out about Shirahoshi and Fishman Island, but hadn't seen her yet. They were like, okay, she's gonna be Shaggy or like Harry, like Neptune. So it's kind of it's a running joke too, along with like the translation thing. So I thought that was pretty neat. Um, Next we get the Fisher Tiger thing. Honestly, like I'm not really interested personally in the scene with Fisher Tiger outside of like how it's connected to this flashback, right? Like we've already had this Fisher Tiger story explained. There's an inconsistency, which okay. Anime fans like to use the word plot hole. This is one of those moments where you can genuinely throw the question, is this a plot hole? Um I believe the way this was originally told was that Fisher Tiger escaped on his own, which on his own, that part isn't really like, I wouldn't say that's the plot hole, but it was that he originally escaped and then he felt so bad for leaving everybody else that he left, came back to the red line, scaled the red line, and like that's the Fisher Tiger incident that everybody like that's like known. And I don't think that's how that really unfolded. So, well, I mean, like, I say I don't think that's how that unfolded. That, like, if we're going off of what we see right here, that's not how that unfolded. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So, um, yeah, the way this unfolds here is it says they've broken their cages open, which I honestly think that part was like Shanks too. Um, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but um, it says they've broken open their cages, right? And then the next panel we see Shanks, and he like cuts Fisher Tiger's cuffs and tells him how to get to the armory and that he's left it unlocked. And then we get like Boa and her sisters and Koala, just kind of like not necessarily tying in the lore, but it's really just like,
I prefer this versus like just skipping to the next scene, right? Like, but we just see some stuff from another perspective that we already knew about. But I really think Shanks is the one that he probably broke open a few cages to get the ruckus started, and then probably found the most like probably the strongest Fisher Tiger to like okay lead this thing. Um, but next scene we get another jump in time, um, which well I guess it's not really the biggest jump in time. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting it confused. There's a jump in time from the Fishman Island scene to this scene, the Fisher Tiger stuff. That was a 5 year jump. One, the Fishman Island thing was 20 years ago. The Fisher Tiger thing is 15. And then the next scene, there's probably like a few nights of difference. If I had to guess, maybe weeks, just because like Harold being there now versus he wasn't when it happened. It's like how long does it take to travel from Elbaf to Marijoa, that kind of thing. Or if he might not even have been in Elbaf, he might have just been in the seas, like closer. So that's why I say days or weeks. Um, then we just get Garling introducing Shanks to Harold and basically explaining like he has the same covenant as you. If he had the covenant that Shamrock has, they'd be on the same level, but they're not. Or he doesn't have that, so he's like a devoted blade like you are, which this to me tells me that the boost from getting I don't really think there is a boost from getting the Shallows covenant because I think it would have been explained for Harold, but also it's what am I trying to say? It would have given Shanks like a boost. It would have said that, or okay, let me back up. I don't like it would have given Harold a boost, and I think we would have learned about that. But also the fact that just the depths would have put him on the level of Shamrock, and that there's a supposedly a level of difference between the two. That just kind of implies to me that there's no like, if there is benefit, it's minimal, right? Like I don't really think the region is a thing. I really think the Shallows is probably more symbolic, and you can go back to how Saturn describes it initially. He calls it um I think this is Saturn saying it, but he just says that the covenant has 3 stages and the Shallows is just a trace of a bond. And then that the other two, the depths and the abyssal, those are like reserved for the 13, right? Which are the God's Knights. So Harold is like, yo, I thought the same thing when I met Shamrocks, but you look familiar, which this at first I was like, okay, it makes sense. Like Garling, the face, right? Like he recognizes the face. They look just like Garling when he was younger. But we don't have like proof that they ran into each other. We don't have proof that Harold ran into either one of any of them at any point in time. But if it was from Garling, I'm pretty sure we would have seen it like in that whole like the whole God Valley thing, right? We didn't see that. And I'm pretty sure that's not what happened. I think what happened is Harold probably ran into the he probably ran into the Roger Pirates at some point before Roger was executed when Shanks was younger, right? His face isn't as mature as it is here. And that's why he was able to like make that connection meeting Shamrock when he did, because when he was introduced to Shamrock, you can see like Shamrock's hair is shorter, he's younger, that kind of thing. And it was that seemed to be around the time of Roger's execution, so that's why the face was familiar even back then. But then we get Shanks. I really think Shanks is trying to sell this whole like I'm a celestial dragon thing way too hard personally. And I think I think because of the snobby and like obnoxious nature of the celestial dragons, it's not really like coming off to them that this is like off, right? If he all of a sudden is like doing this from our perspective, this 180, right? He hates everything of the lower world. He has this disgust that's normal to them, right? And even in like how he's saying, it's like it's connecting, right? Like it all makes sense. No wonder I didn't like it. No wonder everything was disgusting. But he's selling it so hard that Harold is like, you can tell Harold thinks something is off about it. Whether he's like, I've seen you before, whether it's just that or whether it's his act in general, it's, you can tell there's something there. And I feel like you can kind of see it on Shanks's face that he's like, just, he has a plan. And um, he's even telling Shamrock, like, I want to get to the bottom of this whole Fisher Tiger incident, which I just noticed. I think the unofficials were different for this. I don't have it pulled up, but Shanks has the Saint title. They both have the Figarland family title. But Shamrock is actually the official Holy Knight, so that's kind of neat. I think in the unofficial, it had Shanks listed as one too, or their boxes were identical outside of their name. So we kind of transitioned from that scene to back to Elbath, and basically someone poisoned Ida, someone from Estrid's village, because they think, I guess, she had something to do with Ida's death. It's like it's an irrational thing. They're kind of just upset that Estrid is dead, and Harold's only interest was ever really with Ida, and she's a foreigner at that. So they're like, she has to go, and so they poison her. And Hiruden and Loki are both trying to do something about it from their ends, but to no avail so far. And Loki decides to burn this village to the ground after they admit to poisoning her, which W Loki. And bro, he's freaking huge. He has this dude by the neck, like in his hand, like it's a doll. Loki is freaking huge, bro. But Ida's basically just saying, those are both my kids, even if it's not by blood with Loki. And she tells Mato to like run the bar, like make sure the bar is still running. And Loki, he ends the chapter off like, this is the only mother I have, which is why he's so upset about all of this. So yeah, man, I think this is crazy. This is going in a crazy direction. Oh, interesting. Okay. Funny enough, leaks have just come out like probably 2 hours ago. So my word. I don't know if you can hear that. But leaks have come out like 2 hours ago. So I've read them. I'm not going to give my thoughts on those here, but I'm going to try doing a leaks, like a video on leaks, and see how that goes. I'll probably do that tomorrow or Friday, and we'll go from there. I'm sorry if you guys can hear the siren. But yeah, that's going to be this. I'll probably do further discussion vids because this is shorter than my typical like discussion vid, but I kind of wanted to get this out because I said later today or tomorrow, and it's a day after tomorrow. So I love y'all. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, give a like rating if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. I love you, and have a wonderful day.